And thank you so much for joining us today. This is Meenakshi Singh, Scientific Coordinator at the French Embassy in India, moderating this webinar on PhD program in Health and Medical Science in France. Along with me, I have my colleague, Ms. Nidhi Chopra. She is a Campus France officer in Chandigarh and would be providing technical support for this session. With this PhD tour series, we aim to bring the best French higher education institutions to Indian students and provide them information regarding different opportunities and funding mechanism available to pursue higher education in France. Therefore, today's session is divided into two halves. The first half will be dedicated to presentation from our panelists, and second half is dedicated to Q&A session, where we will take up all your queries with our panelists. Thus, I would request all the participants to send their queries in chat and Q&A box. Now, I would like to welcome all our panelists who are with us today. First, we have Dr. Alexander Dubevin from University of Paris-Diderot, who is a senior researcher at INSERM unit. Next, we have Professor Martin from University of Bordeaux. He's the director of Doctoral School of Life Sciences and Health of Bordeaux University since 2018. We also have Dr. Vanya Sisrak from University of Bordeaux, who is a team leader in CNRS Immunoconcept Research Unit. Last but not least, we have Mr. Yogendra Pratap Singh as our alumni, who has recently completed his PhD in biomaterials and tissue engineering. During his PhD, he has been awarded Raman Charpak Fellowship to carry out research at INSERM Institute in Montagnier, France. We will get to learn more about our panelists from themselves as we move forward. Now, coming back to the theme of our webinar today, which is health and medical sciences, it is really interesting to note that the Indo-French cooperation in the field of health goes back to 1960s, and it has grown stronger since then. Hospitals, research centers, institutions of excellences, and businesses from both nations, they are working together in this field. And also the COVID-19 crisis has revealed more than ever before the importance of this cooperation in health sciences. Thus, the post-crisis period offers us an immense opportunity to deepen our cooperation between academic institution and industry, particularly in the areas of training, education, and research. Student mobility, exchange of expertise through internships, doctorate, and postdoctoral study will play a significant role in facing new challenges. There are several MOUs, agreement between French and Indian university in this field that can help students in pursuing a PhD in France. Besides that, French Embassy in India also provide a number of scholarships such as prestigious Raman Charpak Fellowship for PhD, Charpak Research Internship for Masters and Bachelors, enabling young researchers from India to pursue their higher studies in France. Students could also go through Campus France website, which gives comprehensive information on all the French doctoral schools and also displays PhD options available at the French universities and research institutions. Now, without any further delay, I would now like to take forward the panel discussion, and let's learn more about doing a PhD in health science in France from our panelists. First, I would like to begin with Dr. Alexander from University of Paris-Diderot. Dr. Alexander, I would like now you to please introduce yourself and tell us more about your university and research opportunities in the field of health and medical sciences that you have to offer. Over to you.
Okay, perfect. You will share my presentation. It's okay?
Yes.
Sorry, just to help. So, hello everybody. So I'm Alexander de Breven. You can call me Alex. It's more simple. So I'm a senior researcher at INSERM. That's National Institute for Medical Research in France. So we have different type of institutes. The biggest one is called CNRS, and it's often a little bit complicated from outside to understand because INSERM or CNRS, we are. First slide, please. Yes, thank you. Because we are all abroad, all the whole country. So meaning when you see INSERM, CNRS, INRA, or other sign like this one, it doesn't mean it's at a specific place. It can be a little bit everywhere. Me, I am in Paris, for instance. So I am trained as a cell biologist, but in fact, I am a bioinformatician. So I work since 20 years in INSERM, and we are doing two different things, meaning methodological developments, and we provide web server database for the scientific community, and we apply our approaches to proteins of the red blood cells and platelets. We belong to the National Institute for Blood Transfusions. So I am the head of this team. There is 10 different permanent people, senior, more younger researcher, and some engineer. And we have one specificity, which is a little bit uncommon even in France, but can interest Indian people, is that we are at 2 places, one part in Paris, that you all know, and the second part is in the Indian Ocean, in Saint-Denis de la Réunion. That's Réunion Island. So we have 2 places where we can do our research. And so we belong also to 2 different doctorate schools. The doctorate school, to tell a little bit, that's the schools that take care of PhD students. They are the administrative part, but also they help them in terms of CV, formations, and others. So the one in Paris is called BioSPC, and the one from Saint-Denis de la Réunion is called Réunion Island. That's more simple. So also, I will come back to this point for the next slide. Of course, I work with computers, but the rest of my lab is very classical experimental lab that belongs working with for transfusion, malaria, and red blood cells, because we are a little bit, of course, interested into red blood cells associated to pathologies, but also what happens in classical body when you have no problems. So I have a strong link with India because I was very happy to be won by 2 CEFIPRA grants. CEFIPRA grants are international grants between France and India. And so me, it was with molecular biophysics units of ISC Bangalore. And for each CEFIPRA grant, I was awarded by 1 PhD students, 1 Indian PhD students. In fact, I had 3 Indian PhD students, and I am very pleased to have them because they are excellent PhD students. These collaborations goes to more than 30 common publications with ISC. And also this specific grant called CEFIPRA, that is with 1 French PI and 1 Indian PI, allows us to make some exchange of PhD students. And so I was lucky to have 10 PhD students for duration between 1 and 3 months. Our second place, second part of the lab in Réunion Island, they have specific grant for Indian PhD students because they are in Indian Ocean and they like to attract excellent students, and especially Indian one. So during the last 15 years, we have 6 PhD students. So to come back to one of the main questions you can ask is how to have money to have PhDs in France, because in France you need to have money associated to a PhD administration. You cannot do that freely. The most classical one is made with the doctorate school, meaning every year we have a competition where everybody, according to a doctorate school, can apply. So you need to have a triptych, meaning you need to have 1 lab belonging to the doctorate school. So in Paris, for me, it's BioSPC. I need to have a good subject of research, transfusion, blood, something like that. And I need to find a good student. And so we train these students, and these students will be evaluated and will be ranked in regards to his or her abilities. So I can tell you about BioSPC. There is around 25 grants every year, and we have some between 80 and 90 people who tries to have this grant. So meaning the ratio is classical, but one of the main difficulty is at precise time, meaning it's in July. So you need to contact the lab something like 4, 5, 6 months before, and to say, do you have the plan to try for this type of grant? So it's important to know the doctorate school and if they don't have already students for that. In France, we have a large number of other grants that are in some way a little bit more simple for PhD students. The most important one is called ANR, where here it's a French PI who tries to have the money, and when they succeed, if it is written, they can search for a specific PhD. In terms of medical research, another one is called FRM, for the Foundation of Medical Research. And you have also a lot of grants in terms of regions, meaning if you belong to the south, to the east, to the west. And here it's every lab who tries to have that. So in fact, you must do something very simple, is to contact labs that interest you in terms of topics and to ask them, it's my CV, I am interested into your research. Look, I can fit into your research. Do you have plan? Do you have succeed to have some grant? Okay, so as I had 3 PhD students, one is now in UK. No, in fact, the two are in UK. One is still in France, and they have very good CV with more than 10 publications each. I can tell you that it's a good thing to come to France because we have excellent lab. You need to select them and you need to compete for them, but it can make a very good CV. And depending on the town where you go, you can find very interesting place to visit also. Often Indian students, they like to compare with US, UK, Germany, and other places. Okay, it's a little bit like in UK and US. It depends where you go. If you go to a very small university in France, sometimes the lab could be nice, but the CV can be perhaps not what you think after. But if you go to UK and US in a very small university, it is the same issue. So meaning it's something which belongs to how you have dig to find the proper information. One of the most complicated things that all the students told me, it's how can I read a French lab? Because, for instance, my lab belonged to INSERM, University of Paris, University of Rhode Island, belong to something called the LabEx, Laboratory of Excellence. And in fact, we are at the National Institute for Blood Transfusion. So meaning you can ask directly in regards to the papers that you see, the research that is done, where is the lab, what they are doing, and what are their purpose if they want to find new PhD student. It's not a problem. After, there is always one question, which is the administration, meaning if you have the money for a PhD, because you need to have money for a PhD, administration is not as much as complicated as in other place. You need to apply for visa, and sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's not. So like you have seen on my slide, I had something like 15, in fact, different Indian students that comes. For 2 or 3, yes, it was complicated. For most of them, we can handle it quite easily. So that was my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander, for your comprehensive presentation, which was very clear, and I hope it also answered few of queries that students might have. So just to inform our participants that all the questions will be taken up after the presentation from all our 3 panelists. So please keep sending your queries in the Q&A box and in chat box. So now moving over to the next panelist, Professor Martin. Now I would like you to please introduce yourself and your university and what are the research opportunities in the field of health and medical sciences at University of Bordeaux. Over to you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. So I'm presenting the Doctoral School of Bordeaux. It's the Doctoral School of Life Sciences and Health in Bordeaux. And I'm presenting the other way of view compared to what Alexander did. You can also call me Martin for the ease. And so our doctoral school is a big doctoral school, which has currently around 350 doctoral students, around 100 inscriptions every year, and the same number almost of thesis defenses. And there are 675 people who can take doctoral students within our doctoral school. So you see there are many opportunities. And as Alexander did, France is a very beautiful country with very good research. So also in Bordeaux, we have excellent campus with 33 laboratories, and main activities are in vegetable, wine making, neurobiology, and biology of health in general. So for instance, Vanya is part of it. He is in an institute that deals with immunology. And I'm working in an institute that is dealing with cancer biology. So you will find whatever you like in Bordeaux to do. So we have a campus, which is not only one campus, but several campuses. And you can find all information in order to enroll into our doctoral school on this bilingual site from our doctoral school online. So we have a program which is kind of similar to what Alexander described for recruiting students, but there is a decisive difference. So in Alexander's case, the labs have to be contacted by the students in order to be presented by the doctoral school. In our case, you don't need to have anybody to present you, but you just apply to our doctoral school, and then you will be selected if your file is good in order to make a presentation. We did it the past few years by Zoom, and we will continue having Zoom interviews. But we have many people applying. We had last year around 275 people applying, and we only invited 60 people for interview because we have 22 fellowships from the French government, which is very generous. If you aren't invited for interview, doesn't matter. Then you go and search labs and you take contact with these labs. You find all these labs on this bilingual site that is presented here, and you tell what you can offer for these labs in order to convince them that you are the perfect doctoral student. And we have many people from all around the world that come because we have 22 fellowships from the French government. But in the end, we have around 100 people that enroll into our doctoral school every year. So you see, you have all chances. You should go to this site if you're interested. On this site, you find the labs. You will find specific sites which direct you to the new graduate programs. We have now 6 graduate programs associated with our doctoral school. These are programs of excellence where you can do a particularly good thesis and which is very good for your CV. So perhaps Vanya has something to add to this.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. You explained pretty well. I would say maybe like a tip, because like how it works at the École Doctorale of Bordeaux is like you are given fictional subject to present to a jury, and how you will deal, you will develop like basically a PhD project in a way. And so everybody is equal usually and can present like anything like from what is offered at the École Doctorale. But I think it's always a little bit better or easier if you have a local contact established a little bit before, because the preparation for this concours and to get the doctoral fellowship is not that easy, and requires sometimes help from people that are experienced in these programs and stuff like that, and it will maybe increase your chances.
I fully confirm.
Yeah.
And in addition, we have a very nice student organization, 2D2B, and they also accompany students for preparing their presentation. In fact, like Vanya said, this is a fictional project. It's a little bit what is also done in the US, where some students are supposed to present something like an R01 grant proposal. So basically you have to develop a program, and basically what we assess is whether you're well-formed and whether you have a good imagination of what you could do during your thesis. And all the topics that are proposed, they are not dealt with in Bordeaux in order to give equal opportunities for people from abroad and local people. So we want to be open. We want to have the best people in our doctoral school, and we don't restrict anything, not to sex, not to religion, not to nationality. We try to be as open as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, there are also like other ways, as Alexander said, like, even though like this competition to get like a support for your PhD is difficult because it's a competition, and it's you know, not everybody gets grants like to support their research, but sometimes it's also like important to contact the doctor, like different labs, because some PIs may have independent funding that is, you know, available for students to pursue a PhD, and this individual funding can come from European agencies or national grants or local grants, etc. And so it's important, like if you have a good CV and people are looking for a PhD students, like, you know, going and seeing in different labs or sending emails is an important like first contact.
And you find much of this information on individual homepages.
Yes.
Of the labs, and if you go, for instance, to Vanya's lab, you will see what his funding is and what his colleagues' funding is. So you find many opportunities, and you can be led by your interest, because everybody has different interest in science. But our doctoral school has 13 specialties, from biochemistry, cellular biology, microbiology, immunology, oenology, neuroscience. You name it, we have it. So it's basically, it's a very good place, and it's a very dynamic university that has developed enormously during the past 10 years. And there's much support also for incoming students in order to accommodate into the French living. And as Alexander said, we only accept people that have funding. Without funding, you can't do, without monthly payment, you can't do a thesis. And this is also good because life is quite expensive in Bordeaux, but the salary that PhD students receive is largely sufficient to have a good life here, a good life in lab and good life in after lab. And Bordeaux is a place where there are about 100,000 students in total. So you'll find people to have good life in Bordeaux. So, and for sure, there are many other places in France as well. I'm just representing Bordeaux, and so I'm quite enthusiastic about our place. But France in general is a very beautiful country with many good sites and many good research points in Strasbourg, Paris for sure, Marseille, Montpellier. There is so much to do, and you should be really led by your research interest and contact the labs, contact the doctoral schools, because the doctoral schools each have some differences in the way how they recruit people. And I think it's really worthwhile just getting in touch with people, and we try to answer within 24 hours, 48 hours at most. For me, it would be all I would have to say, and I would be happy to answer questions.
So, thank you, Professor Martin and Dr. Vanya, for your presentation and information on this topic. So it was really useful for us to have an idea, you know, what Bordeaux University has to offer in terms of research opportunities. And before moving to the question and answer, I will now like to invite Yogendra, who is our alumni. So he could just, so Yogendra, I would like now you to introduce yourself and share your experience of doing a PhD in France with all our participants. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yogendra Pratap Singh, and I'm just finishing my PhD from Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati in Assam. That's in the northeastern part of Assam, northeastern part of India. And so I have recently been awarded for postdoctoral fellowship at Penn State University. So just after finishing that, I'll be joining Penn State. But coming back to the core of this particular program, so I visited France in 2017-18 as part of Raman Chapak Fellowship, which I was awarded in 2017-18 by the CEFIPRA. Again, CEFIPRA is the Indo-French Center for Promotion of Advanced Research. And this is actually a bilateral organization which is run both by Government of India and also Government of France, established in 1987 mainly funded and taken care of by DST, Government of India, from this side. So overall, to tell you very frankly, it was in one way, in more than one way, a life-changing experience for me visiting France. And just to name a few reasons, I jotted down a few points, why France, because most of you would be, wanting to know, because I've been there and as an Indian perspective, right? So firstly, see, France has, of course, the most impressive and prestigious educational system. There's no doubt about it. And it is regarded as center of high culture, because it's always played a very vital role in shaping the world in terms of art, in terms of culture and sciences. And also it's internationally recognized for its fashion, cuisine, art, and cinema. So these things are very important overall in a holistic approach of education. That's what I feel. And France is also ranked as 12th in the Global Innovation Index 2020. It's produced around 26 Nobel laureates in the past century. So overall, we see how well it's done in education. And no doubt, it's a very beautiful place. And I was with University of Montpellier, an INSEAD institute in Montpellier. And Montpellier, no doubt, southern France is a beautiful place, especially summer vacations. And people come from all over France to Marseille, Bordeaux, and Montpellier, and all these places. So also my experience, I'd like to add that France is open to international community, which is the beauty of it. And one very important point I would like to add here is there is an advanced synergy between the hospitals, the industry, and the research laboratories in France, which is the beauty of it, which every education system should have, and France has it. As you produce result and products, those needs to be tested, which is why you have the hospitals associated, and those then will need to be produced in larger amounts. So you have industry association as well. So it's all a beautiful synergy as I've seen in France. So that is another thing I like. And final important thing is there is a very balanced approach in a professional and a personal life in France. We all work, that's there, but you should not forget your hobbies. You should not forget your activities. There are tremendous activities you can do. Particularly, I used to love this game called pétanque in France that I used to play. So I mean, I'm just naming a few. And few advices I would like to give, I mean, if it helps you. Firstly, I would encourage everyone to learn a basic French. It really helps. I mean, I did. It generally helps you. Nothing wrong. It's a beautiful language, and if you don't know, I mean, whatever you try and speak, and people will be encouraging and helpful. So I always suggest everyone that if you are visiting France, do learn basic French and be open to exploration and to new opportunities that you come across. Make the most of it. And it's also an exchange of culture and knowledge. So it's not only that what you're going to learn, what you know, and our culture, I mean, Indian culture, India as well is very rich in our cultural values. So those are to be passed on to France, and so we have to accept from the other side as well. So it's an exchange between knowledge of culture. So again, that's the beauty of it. And also to the new PhD students, all I could say is have a good hypothesis before you approach any application. Know where you are going into, do a bit of research and consult the lab, and people will reply to you. Just shoot a mail and say that this is a particular idea I have, and would it be would you be willing to give me space in your lab? And the funding opportunities, I'm sure if you have a brilliant idea, they will be worked about. And there are again two ways, as professors and panelists have already explained beautifully, that either you move through the educational the institute systems where you apply directly to the doctoral institutes, or you can approach the PI directly. So both are there, and it's a, as I said, you do not hesitate. Feel free to shoot emails, and such beautiful people, they always reply, and with a yes or no is a different thing, but they would reply. That's well, my personal experience, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm glad I was part of it, and glad I visited France. Thank you, everyone, and good luck to the new ones.
Thank you so much, Yogen, for sharing your experience both on personal and professional front. It was really useful. So now I think we are well on time. Now we can start with our Q&A session. So to begin with Q&A, I have received 3 questions, very general one also, and some related to the field as well. So there is one question from a student who would like to know if GRE or IELTS is mandatory for PhD to have a PhD in France.
GRE or islets, so
Yes.
it's pancreatic islets, or
yeah, I think I could pitch into this. IELTS would not be required in France. That's the English proficiency certificate. So yeah, it's like TOEFL and IELTS. So it would not be required in France. GRE, not sure if there is an equivalent, but I don't think that is also required. These are very specific to US system. So I don't think that's required for the French system.
No, it's not required. The only point I would like to share with you is that if I remember, you have we want to have a 5 years MSc, and not the previous 4. There is some 4 years not BSc, I've forgotten the real name. BTech, yes, this we need the 5 years. It's obligatory, otherwise it blocks everything, even if the PhD student is accepted, because after administration will block that. Okay.
Actually, you answered my next question. It was exactly the same, which university in France enrolls student directly after 4 years of bachelor's. So you gave the answer. So there is no way. You need to have at least 5 years of your bachelor's, and preferably bachelor plus master's.
Yes.
So
I should probably add that we also require that people come with a research experience, that they did 6 months in a lab, in a real research experience.
Yes, so we always encourage students to, go to France for a prior experience in research as a master, master exchange, or in the final year of their master. So it always increases their chance to have a PhD, to secure a PhD in a laboratory in France. And what is the age criteria for entering PhD? Is there any bar? No?
I don't think so. There is an age limit.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's no age limit.
No, there is no age limit, but for certain competition like a doctorate school, even if you are too close to the 30, it diminishes your the success rate. Meaning you need to explain why you have some gaps or something like that. So meaning I will not say youngest is the best, but not too old.
Yeah, sure.
For us, it's whoever is good can apply.
Next question is related to opportunities for PhD in public health. So are there any certain programs for PhD in public health, or certain university which are specializing in this field?
We have 8 doctoral schools in Bordeaux, and we are one of the big ones, but there's also a specific one for public health.
Okay.
You have one near in every big cities in France. And as Martin says, you have Bordeaux, you have Montpellier, you have Toulouse, you have Strasbourg, we have Brest, we have a lot of towns where you have this kind of opportunity. So don't hesitate to look all the beautiful map of France.
Yes, that's really important, because each region has different specialties. So a student can choose, wherever they wish to go for a particular course and particular their topic. There is a question, not a question, but it's like a query. I have a B1 in French. Would that be advantageous for doing a PhD in France? But as we know that it's not a mandatory, because you
It's not mandatory, but it's good because in a lab, for instance, interaction with the youngest student, it's not that they don't speak very well English, but for the first link, it's better, and to go to drink some coffee or French tea could be a nice thing.
Yeah, that is what exactly our alumni said previously. So next question is, yes.
Yeah, it just makes things easier. Like it's
Absolutely.
easier, it just makes things easier.
Where to look for funding, and does the working as a PhD student, they get paid at the University of Bordeaux? Can you suggest some scholarships? So basically, you would like to know if the student gets a scholarship while doing a PhD in University of Bordeaux.
Students are funded either by these scholarships provided by the French government, these 22 I mentioned, or they have to contact group leaders wherever. And if they have funding, they can pay for the thesis. So the about 80 other people who didn't get the government fellowships, they are all funded through grants that were obtained by group leaders.
Okay. So the students have various of opportunities.
Perhaps to add into this, these grants, as Alexander said, they are provided mainly by ANR and so forth, but there are a couple of foundations like the Ligue contre le cancer, ARC and FRM, where you can apply for student fellowships that also pay for thesis. So there is an interest to try to get these, but I would contact labs for a project, and then together with the labs write these applications to these foundations.
Yeah, it's important to know the system before like applying, because if you're an outsider, it's very difficult to please the selection committees.
Yeah, so
as Yogandra says, don't hesitate to contact group leaders that you find really it fits to what you would like to do as good research. It's essential, and they will know how to go further if they are pleased with your CV.
So it's always important to send out your CVs as much as possible to as much as equal doctoral or universities to increase your chance.
CV, yes, and also some kind of mini motivation letter to tell the PI why you could be interesting for him or her, and why you are interested into the research, because we receive a lot of letters saying, dear professor, doctor, we are interested to go to your lab, and does not explain why. So we know that they are spamming a lot of people.
Yes, so it is important to have a clear your statement of purpose ready. So whenever you send an application, you have a clear idea what exact research, what is your research area, and on what topic you would like to do your research.
Yeah, just to add to it, a small suggestion again is do not have general emails to all the PIs. As I said earlier, do a bit of research, make a list priority wise, and then send out emails, personalized emails to the particular PI. Only then will you get a proper response, because now everyone knows how the system works. And by reading just a few sentences of your email, we can make out the system, whether it's generalized or it's specific. So whatever interest, whatever you're proposing, propose it in the first two sentences and then proceed with other details and all. So that would really help you.
And I have one question particularly for you. So one student would like to know your application procedure for your application for a Manchapak, because it will be very useful, because many students, they don't have resources to go to to secure a scholarship in France. Right. But as a student already registered in India, they can go to France as a part of their PhD.
So Roman Chapak Fellowship is an international exchange program. So I was in some institute, University of Montagnier, for 6 months during my PhD. So as part of, I work in the field of tissue engineering, so scaffold-based tissue engineering. So we make artificial organs using silk as a scaffold, and grow stem cells on them, differentiate them, and then make particularly cartilage and osteochondral tissues. So that is how I approached to my scientist in in some institute, Professor Daniel Noel. And so that's how it works. I mean, you apply to them. What was the second part of the question? I forgot that.
And could you tell them how they could apply to, such programs? Right. Tell the path of it.
So CEFIPRA releases this Raman Chapak Fellowship. They organize it very nicely. Just just follow their website and it comes out and you apply. It's a very straightforward approach without much complications. All you need to do is send in your CV, your publications, and other details. And it's the same procedure. So Chapak Fellowship is again for PhD. This is for Raman Chapak Fellowship is for 6 months to do your research during your PhD, that is. So not for fresh PhD. Fresh PhD is different. Chapak Fellowships.
Okay, thank you.
If I can add something there, I'm also like in my lab, I will receive a student from India in the next year who got the same fellowship, like the Raman Chaprak Fellowship. But this contact came for me. It's also important. Like it come from an interaction between investigators. I hear me and a previous friend back in India. So we met during our postdoc. He was we were together in the US. So basically, there are many contacts that that were already established before with the investigators back in India now, and us here during our common training program. And so this is also something important and fosters a lot of collaboration. And these CEFIPRA grants are amazing, and these Raman Chapraks are really fellowships are really cool. But it's also you don't have to come do entire PhD here. Like if you can discuss that with your principal investigators in India who may be interested, to find collaborators back in France, and this can be some common grounds that you can also develop. And the exchange of 6 months is also an excellent added value for your PhD after and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And one just to add to it. Basically what the application from my experience they look into is that it's a collaborative work. Person, complementary lab should be working in the same field. Also, it helps that you propose something that you're not able to do in your lab in India, and that and your counterpart in France has it. That would really be helpful for the application. Please keep that in mind.
Yes. Probably to add something to that, is if you do a doctoral thesis and you spend half of the time in India and half of the time in France, you can also try to go for a double, for a co-tutel, a double degree, which is very good for your CV. In fact, we tried this with Tapas Kundu from Bangalore a couple of years ago. We didn't have it, but that's also normal. You can't win every time. So, but this is something we will certainly try again in the future.
Thank you so much for answering the queries. There is one query. I'm pursuing doctoral degree in food science and technology. I would like to pursue my postdoctorate in France. So is there any co-doctoral for this field? Do you have any idea?
There is a nutrition in our so-called doctoral, but it depends what you are then it's become very specific questions to very specific people, and there are postdoctoral so this is for a postdoctoral fellowship, I guess. So this so this you should look for postdoctoral offers or directly contact labs and telling them that you are interested, and I can do an application for a postdoctoral fellowship or stuff like that. But it's very difficult to respond individually to each individual question because it's related to the topic.
Yes. Just before closing the session, I will take one last question. The student has done MSc thesis in health science, and will it help him to get PhD in regenerative medicine? He has done his MSc thesis in health sciences, and he would like to do his PhD in regenerative medicine.
In regenerative medicine.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do that, but you have to find the lab that does this, and then contact the people in the lab, see whether they have funding. Yeah. Whether you can apply directly to the doctoral school. If it's in Bordeaux, there are labs that do work on regenerative medicine. You just need to contact people and see whether everything falls into place.
Yeah, this is you will always find topics like but as I said, like this is all like individual based, so there is everything is out there, but you have to look for it, and usually people are not so close-minded neither. So if you're coming from another field, there's opportunity. You can always explore. You are at the junior age, like it's not everything is set. Like it's cool that you explore everything, and do not hesitate. You can jump from one thing to another. It's okay. It's fine.
Okay, so thank you so much. I would like to thank all our panelists once again for their lovely presentation and their patience to to answer the queries of all our participants today. So before, if you have any last word or any advice you can share with us for the participants, and if you don't have anything, we can wrap up this session and thank all the participants who have stayed with us till the end. Do you have any last remark?
I would like to thank all the young Indian people who show interest in coming to France. I think this is really important for science, that we have these open minds that take the little risk. It's not a huge risk, but to go abroad, to invest into science. And I hope that at least for some of you, this will work out.
Okay, so thank you so much. I would like to inform all our fellow participants that the French Institute in India and Campus France in India, they are always there to guide and help Indian students to follow their dream of doing a PhD in France. So please contact your nearest Campus France office, and also keep following us on our different social media platforms. So choose France, study in France, keep connected with us. So have a lovely evening. Bye. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.